What would you do if a bank manager destroyed your $5 million check just because of the way you looked? In today's powerful and emotional story, a hardworking single dad walks into a bank expecting a fresh start, only to face humiliation, judgment, and disbelief. But everything changes when an unexpected visitor reveals the truth and leaves the entire bank in shock. This inspiring story is a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that respect should never depend on wealth or status. Before we begin, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. Let's get started. Jacob Miller parked his aging pickup truck outside one of the largest banks in Dallas, Texas. The vehicle looked worn from years of use, much like the faded denim jacket he wore that morning. To strangers, he appeared to be an ordinary working man struggling to make ends meet. Few would have guessed that he had recently sold a technology company for millions of dollars. For Jacob, success had never been about expensive clothes or luxury cars. As a single father, every decision he made was focused on providing a better future for his daughter, Emily. Holding a secure envelope in his hand, Jacob entered the bank with a sense of relief. The $5 million check inside represented years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and determination. He remembered working late into the night after putting Emily to bed, building software from a small desk in his garage. There had been moments when he doubted himself, but he never gave up. As he approached the counter, bank manager Susan Blake noticed him. Her eyes immediately focused on his appearance rather than the envelope he carried. When Jacob politely explained that he wanted to deposit a check, Susan took it and examined it with suspicion. The amount seemed unbelievable to her. Instead of verifying the document through proper channels, she became convinced that something was wrong. "This has to be fake," she said sharply. Jacob remained calm and explained that the check was payment from the sale of his company. Susan barely listened. Several customers nearby began watching as her voice grew louder. She questioned him repeatedly, treating him like a criminal rather than a customer. Despite Jacob's efforts to explain, Susan refused to hear his story. Her judgment was already made. She believed a man dressed like Jacob could never possess a legitimate $5 million check. The tension in the bank grew as security guards moved closer, while Jacob stood quietly, unaware that the situation was about to become even more dramatic. The atmosphere inside the bank became painfully quiet after Jacob was escorted toward the exit. Customers exchanged uncomfortable glances, and even some employees seemed uncertain about what had just happened. Jacob stood outside the entrance, holding the torn pieces of his check. Although frustrated, he remained composed. Years of overcoming challenges as a single father had taught him patience and self-control. Just then, a black executive vehicle pulled into the parking lot. Out stepped Richard Thompson, the bank's regional director, who had arrived unexpectedly for a routine inspection. As he entered the branch, he immediately sensed that something was wrong. The staff looked nervous, and the usual flow of business had completely stopped. Richard approached the counter and asked Susan Blake what had happened. With confidence, she explained that she had prevented a fraudulent transaction by removing a suspicious customer from the bank. Proud of her actions, she described the man's appearance and mentioned the enormous check he had tried to deposit. Richard listened carefully before asking a simple question. "What was the customer's name?" "Jacob Miller," Susan replied. The color drained from Richard's face. He knew that name immediately. Jacob Miller was the founder of a rapidly growing software company that had recently been acquired for millions of dollars. In fact, the bank had received notice only days earlier that Jacob would be opening several high-value accounts and transferring significant assets. Without saying another word, Richard hurried outside. He found Jacob standing calmly near his truck. Extending his hand, Richard offered a sincere apology and asked him to return inside as an honored client. Back in the branch, the truth quickly became clear. Susan stood frozen in disbelief as Richard explained who Jacob was. The torn check was replaced through proper procedures, and Jacob's transaction was handled personally by senior staff. As Jacob completed his business, the entire branch learned an unforgettable lesson. A person's worth, success, and character can never be judged by appearance alone.